Hey there. I'm really glad you're here in the Sink and Swim podcast. Before we get into today's episode, little housekeeping. I want to help you get oriented just so you know where you are, how the space works, and how to take care of yourself while you're listening. So first, a gentle invitation. As you listen or watch, see if you can listen not only with your ears or watch with your eyes, but also by noticing what's going on inside your body. And that may change throughout the whole episode. And as you notice, permission to know you don't need to fix anything, you don't need to analyze it, but just notice it. Some parts of you might feel seen. Some might feel exposed. Some parts might feel resistance or concern about what we're saying. Other parts might feel relief, encouragement, or they might want to reach through and help us or hug me if it's just me talking. So notice how you feel as you settle in, whether you're listening in a quiet place or out on a walk or driving or in the middle of something, and also how you feel when you're done. That noticing is a really sacred work. And after you listen to the episode and notice, if you find yourself feeling the tug to stay connected to me or to the podcast or to any of my guests, please make sure to check the show notes and also make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening right now. Now is a great time to go hit that subscribe button. And I'm not asking that for numbers, but because it lets the episodes find you without you having to remember or keep track. And if you like having something you can read or revisit or sit with more slowly, you can also subscribe to my newsletter, and that's in the show notes as well. You can also find clips and highlights on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Substack, and Facebook. All different platforms, different doorways to the same house. So choose whatever feels easiest for you. At any point today, later, or months from now, if something in you starts whispering, I feel this nudge inside. My life or my work looks really good on paper. Everything I've built should feel good, but that's not how I feel. And sometimes that can be a sign that it's time for deeper support and reorientation. And that's where working with me in a soul story mapping session comes in. It's a private one-on-one session, not a discovery call, not a sales conversation. It's an actual coaching space to map what's true for you right now and get clear on what wants to shift. Even if you don't do anything with it, we're just going to map it out. All of the links to all of those things live in the show notes, so you don't have to hold any of this in your head, but I'm saying it now to orient you in case you're listening and something comes up and you want to know where to go next. Okay, let's drop into today's episode now. I just want to start this first of all by introducing myself if you're new to our community. I'm Dr. Julie Granger. I am a coach helping clinicians, mostly physical therapists, but any type of licensed clinicians. I have been having the most rich and beautiful conversations with so many of you in this community, asking so many questions. Anything from, what is a coach? Am I qualified to do that? How do I know I'm qualified? How can people charge that much? Like feeling like you're not safe to be able to offer coaching outside of your scope. So many beautiful, wonderful questions. So if you have had any of these types of questions, wondering if you need a certification, wondering how to go about getting started with coaching, how to add it to your practice, how to get people to see the value in coaching over your clinical work, whether it's PT or something else, you are in the right place. When we have confusion in our lives, we don't take action. We don't make decisions. We stay there when there's not clarity, when we don't have answers. And I've had so many people tell me, I'm really interested in that coaching thing. Like I'm looking into it. I'm curious about it. I don't even know the first thing about it. And while I'm not here to train you to be a coach, I've been doing this in my business as like a dedicated offering that I offer people for over 7 years now. And if we're being honest, I've been coaching longer than that. And so many of you know what I'm talking about. And I have gone through coach training. I've gone through coach certification. I have done every iteration of coaching that's possible. I've coached on health, body stuff, hormones, teen health, pediatrics, chronic pain. I've coached on mindset, spirit, relationships, family shit. I've coached on business. I've coached on marketing. I've literally made this huge transition in my coaching work through this time frame. And so your questions are so valid if you're asking these questions, because I've had them all as well. And I still have them sometimes, even though I'm like established here as like coaching is my profession. So I just want you to know that if you've had any of these questions, it is completely valid and I am here to help you. This is why I've been losing sleep, because I see so many clinicians held back in clinical work when they've outgrown it. It's possible to outgrow the dream you once had as a clinician. It's possible to keep trying to shapeshift yourself into this thing that's now too small for you. Coaching allows this expansiveness in your life, which I'm going to tell you about. It allows an expansiveness in the impact you can make on your clients because you can help them heal beyond the physical body things that are ailing them. A lot of you see that there's actually other things that led to those physical body things, and you want to be able to coach them on that. And it's kind of outside of your clinical scope. Coaching leads to more income potential for you. And most importantly, it leads to freedom. The name of my business is Illuminate Freedom. And that is what I'm here today, is illuminate that for you on what's possible for you. Having said that, is coaching for everyone? Absolutely not. Is clinician work bad? Absolutely not. It's wonderful and it's so perfect for so many people. So some of you might learn that, yeah, you're perfect as a clinician. It's a great place for you to be. I applaud you. I celebrate you. There is no part of me that is shaming you for being a clinician. But some of you have outgrown it, and that's completely okay. And it is no strike against you if you haven't outgrown it, if you continue to grow within it, if it continues to grow with you. Clinical work, wonderful. We need you in our world. And so many of our clients need you in our world. I need you. I need clinicians to help me. So no matter where you are on the pathway of clinician, coach, somewhere in the middle, you're in a perfect spot. And if you're feeling any bit of confusion, whether it's in your identity, who am I? What do I even call myself? How do I present this to people? How do I get people to see the value in this thing that I do? I am here to help you. I want to help you. I'm here to guide you. This is exactly what I do in all of my coaching work and all my coaching programs. Our purpose for you is to help you find your version of freedom and joy and unconditional love and really being aligned with your divinely gifted purpose. No matter what lane you're in, clinician, coach, they're all perfect. So everything I'm saying about coaching can apply to clinician work as well, pretty much. This also applies to you if you've never been a clinician in your life and you are going into coaching. Maybe you were a teacher and you're going into coaching, you're an attorney and you're going into coaching. We help all kinds of people making some type of transition there. And it also applies to you if you're an established coach and you've been doing it for a while. So thank you for your time. I have so much in store today. I'm so excited. And if I appear passionate, it's because I am. I feel very strongly that you deserve to have a career that lights you up, that doesn't feel like this heavy weight you're carrying around. And it's freaking fun. Y'all, I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning planning this last night, not because I felt stressed or because I had to. I was full of this creative, joyful energy, and it was fun. I'm not advocating 1 a.m. every night, but sometimes that's a beautiful energy space to be in. And as a coach, as someone who's created a lifestyle where I'm the boss and I get to make the rules, I woke up this morning completely energized. It didn't drain me because I was totally aligned with my bigger purpose and what I believe is possible for you. And I'm about to highlight all those things. So what we're going to go over today is I'm going to help clarify a lot of confusion, a lot of common questions I get when it comes to coaching. Specifically, I'm going to help you see what's possible for you as a coach and help provide you some information that helps you make a lot of decisions for yourself. Coaching 101, y'all, is I am not here to tell you what to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and spoil the end of the movie for you a little bit. If you're like, what's the difference between PT and coaching? One of the main differences is a coach doesn't tell anyone what to do. I'm not the authority. I am not your authority. I'm not here to tell you what you should do. So if you're looking for that, you're in the wrong place. Whereas in clinical work, the clinician is seen as the authority, as the expert, as the person who has all the answers. And that can feel like a lot of pressure. It can also feel really good as a clinician. So as a coach, I am here to provide you information to help you make a sovereign decision. You're a sovereign, brilliantly, divinely inspired being with the answers inside of you about what's right for you. Sometimes you need tools and information that I'll provide to you, but ultimately you make your decision yourself. So whatever you take from this today, you're implementing, you're responsible for it. You get all the power here. I am just the messenger. Lots of people might disagree with things that I present to you, and that's okay too. I'm not looking for your agreement, right? Coaching can be a very polarizing conversation for a lot of people. So I'm going to provide information based on my experience, based on years and years of coaching clients, based on coaching people in their own businesses, in their own career transitions, from clinician to coach. I'm providing my experience as a very experienced clinician as well, who literally pledged allegiance to being a freaking rock star expert in my clinical niche. And so I get it if there are so many questions and so much confusion. So I'm here for that. Other things, there are no rules. There are no rules. There are no rules. There are no rules. Nothing I'm saying is a Julie said you should do. Okay? There are no shoulds. There is your divinely gifted, inspired life with answers inside of you. And then there are shoulds. Shoulds are societal. They're like what society says we should do. It's how we try and bend and shape shift ourselves to look a certain way. And then there's how you really are. So again, some of you, coaching may not be for you. It's not for you. I'm not here to convince you that coaching is amazing, although it is. Okay? And I'm not here to convince you to stay in a clinician job. I'm not here to tell you that being in the middle of the two is wrong or bad and you need to pick a lane and go with it. Okay? Ultimately, you get to take what you want from this, whatever lands for you today. And then I really encourage you to come back and listen to this again as you move along the path, if you are moving along the path, because things might land for you differently next time. Okay, the thing I want to start with when I was talking about the rules, when it comes to designing your career, has anyone here been an A+ student ever? Had that personality, hi, I'm an A+ student. I'm always going, I'm the captain of the swim team or whatever team you're on, student council president, sorority president. I'm literally naming off like my former resume here. This, how I guide clients is there's the A+ student track, which is the societal rules track of how you should be, how you should look, how things should be perfectly buttoned up in a perfect box. That's what makes you complete. That's what makes you whole. That's what makes you valuable. Perfectionism, not enoughness. We could go into a whole conversation. And so I want you to ask yourself as I'm talking where you're operating from A+ student box by default. And that's okay. We all do it. I'm literally a recovering one and find myself there like 16 times a day. It's fine. Then there's I'm the CEO. I'm the boss. CEOs and bosses achieve great heights because they don't go for A+. They go for what intuitively works for them, for their companies. They see themselves as sort of a divine steward of their mission, of their vision. They're so clear on that. And so they receive, they take what works for them. They resource from learnings, from courses, from trainings, from mentoring, whatever, from hiring people, just the right amount, but not too many because they're going for a profit. Emotional profitability, financial profitability in a business. Profitability doesn't work if you're trying to A+ all the things. That's not profitable. It's a total waste of energy. Total waste. Waste of time, waste of energy, waste of money. So A+ student shows up in the clinician to coach world. Oh, I need all the trainings. I need all the things. I need to have every duck in a row. I need to have all my pieces in place. It needs to be perfect. That's your A+ student coming out. If you're afraid of what people are going to think of you, if you're afraid you're going to get in trouble, if you're afraid any of that, I get it. Been there, done it. That's your A+ student. That's the lane you're operating out of. It won't be profitable. Whether you're in the clinician lane, whatever. Everyone knows you can take 1 million CEUs, you love learning, you retain 10% of it, you use 10% of it. That is not profitable. You're invested in something which you get only a 10% return, right? 10% is great, but you spent more time, money, and energy investing in it than you're actually using it. And so when it comes to coaching, the beautiful thing, if you're like in that transition, you get to start reinventing the way you approach how you operate from a place of boss. And by the way, this applies to you if you're looking to build a clinical practice of your own. This totally applies to you as well. I'm just going to use the coach language here, okay? So CEOs make very calculated, strategic decisions, weighing a lot of information, which is exactly what I'm providing you today. Lots of information. You get to make calculated decisions. And I want you to know at the end of this, I'm going to provide you resources on how you can make these decisions with support. Because what CEOs do is they do not make decisions alone. They do not do that. It is not a thing. It is not a thing. Achievement happens with support. So if you're watching all this and you get to the end of this and you're like, wow, this is a lot, you need a coach. I'm just going to tell you that. You need a coach to guide you. Whether it's me or someone else, you need a coach to help you make decisions. The hardest thing in being a CEO of your life, of your business, is making decisions. It's not about action, it's about the decision, because we're afraid we're gonna make the wrong one, okay? And you might, and that's okay. There's no such thing as wrong. You'll always find a way back to your divinely gifted path, even if you take a little detour. That's okay, okay? So if you're like, wow, Julie, that's a lot of information to process, I'm not sure, I'm gonna provide you resources at the end of this. I've got you. Some of them are free, Some of them are enrolling in our programs. But I just want you to know, I'm here to help you today. Okay, you're going to get so much out of this. And then if you're looking to go from A+ student path to CEO path, then hiring someone for support is the most important thing you can do instead of trying to figure it out on your own, because that's not profitable. That's a huge waste of time and money. Okay, so onward. The last thing I want to tell you is I have no expectation that any of you become a carbon copy of me. So I'm going to tell you my story. I'm telling you my experience. I'm telling you the experience of my clients too. And by the way, if you've jumped in, please introduce yourself. Tell me where you're watching from. And so sharing my story doesn't mean you need to be a carbon copy of me. No two of us are created the same. And hopefully what I share with you can help you have bigger achievements than me, right? And you can avoid a lot of the mistakes I've made. And that's one reason why I love to help you, is so that you can be emotionally profitable, financially profitable, time profitable, and not waste time in places when you're operating from A+ student lane. Okay, so for me, I never really knew what the hell coaching was. I didn't know it was a thing. I had sports coaches growing up. I was a collegiate athlete. I swam in college at Duke. And it wasn't until, I can't remember when I first figured out what coaching was, that it was even a thing, a profession people did. Except I met a colleague who was doing life coaching. And as someone who had pledged allegiance to all the certifications, all the clinician world, I was a super highly trained, credentialed clinical specialist in my niche as a PT. I had spoken at CSM. I'd published research papers. I was teaching in PT school. I just was a little confused. I was like, how is she doing that? But she was doing it. She was owning it and doing a great job. So I didn't really question it. I saw how she had a lifestyle where she was working from anywhere. And I was like, that's interesting. But I never really thought it was something that I wanted at the time. And then fast forward a year later, I got sick. And the sickness was cancer. I had to go on disability leave from my PT job, which was a real trial of my identity. I wasn't the type to take time off at the time. A+ student. And I went through cancer treatment. And at the time I had started to dabble myself as a client, as a patient, in more of the functional medicine, integrative medicine world, and saw that there was this beautiful blending of both more allopathic traditional medicine and a little bit more integrative medicine stuff going on. I'd also, for the last year, was I see how so much of my spirit, so much of my mind, my energy affects my body. It affects my interactions, my communication with people at work, in my personal life, my family, my husband. And it was there's something to this. There's something deeper. And what was interesting as I was going through that journey in this very early stage of exploring what coaching was, this was 10 years ago, y'all, I kind of started reflecting. I was like, you know what? I kind of do that with my clients in PT. It's I bring in a lot of these extraneous, not physical healing conversations, teaching, education, just I really hold space. I'm very comfortable with people's emotions. I'm very comfortable pushing the limit on what's in my scope and what I talk about with people. And so I just kind of saw that I was already naturally on that path. And so when I went through cancer, I hired a health coach, really great health coach. You guys might know her, Jessica Drummond. And I was like, something to this, right? There's something to someone who is a clinician, now a coach, who is in this stunning, amazing professional space and lifestyle space. And I was a year after hiring my first coach, I was I really think I want to pursue that. And so I was for a while, it was just kind of this little confused space. Yeah, I'll do that someday. I really need to take care of a lot of things first, obviously, going through some things. But it was at the same time that I was also in a very toxic work environment as a clinician, and I had already made a decision I needed to get out of it. I got diagnosed with cancer, and that got me out of it. I was okay, I'm not going back when I went on disability leave. So I knew I needed to do something different career-wise. I was terrified of what the hell that could be. And so it took a couple months of bumbling along on disability leave. And when I say bumbling, I mean healing from cancer, doing all the things and resting and just enjoying, really getting into the joy of life, because there's nothing like getting diagnosed with cancer. Not to minimize it, to put you right up against your purpose in life and what you're meant to do on this planet and whether you're aligned with that or not, and whether you're going to live, just to be honest, brutally honest. So I really knew I needed to step into a bigger version of myself, and shape-shifting myself into this clinical model that was wearing me out, burning me out, exhausting, was no longer for me. It was like, I don't know where I'm going. And that's really super scary because I've always known what the next step is. I've always had a checklist. I've always followed the next thing. And here I am a little lost. So if you're a clinician going into coaching or thinking about it, or you're somewhere on that path and you're feeling lost and confused, y'all, you're not alone. This is normal. That's actually normal. I would expect that for you. Okay. Not that I wish the angst and all the things, but that's actually a normal sign of growth. That's a healthy sign of growth. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're not growing. Okay. So I bumbled along in that process, ended up starting my own PT company. I was like, I'm going to meet myself where I am, do some PT for a while. Really knew it was a stepping stone. Like in the back of my head, I was like, all right, I see where I want to go. I think I'm not quite sure what it is, but I know I want that lifestyle. I know I want to help people a little bit more holistically in some way. And I really hadn't put it all together yet, but it was like, okay, great. So I'm going to do PT. I'm going to make my own damn rules for how I do a PT practice. I did it out of a 3rd bedroom in my house and it worked. It's fine. It was okay. And I loved the interaction I had with my clients. I loved being able to do stuff where I followed athletes to the field, and that was our treatment that day. I loved just slowly getting out of that clinician box. Of course, as I continued with my own coaches, I started getting curious about actually making that a thing in my business. It didn't take long, maybe 6 months doing just solely PT or more performance, sports performance, women's health stuff. And I still took a lot of clinical courses. I was still on this sort of CEU bandwagon thing. I hadn't really broken up with that. Was still teaching in PT school. Yes, while doing all this cancer stuff. Oh yes. So I was still A+ studenting my life. I ultimately, with my commitment to freedom and joy for myself and really being aligned with my purpose, those things slowly just started to fall away. So ultimately, I signed up for a coach training and went through getting certified in that because as a clinician, I had at the time a belief that you need to get trained and certified before you can do something. And I'm just going to tell you all right now, that's not necessarily the truth. I'm just going to spoiler alert that question. And I went through the training. It took me forever to finish it because of the cancer, because of how busy I was and how successful my PT practice was. So it was it took forever. I dragged my feet. It was really hard to implement the things I was learning. I would try my skills out on my patients and be like, oh, I'm coaching, which I was. It was a great place to practice. But then I'd feel frustrated. I'd be like, oh, I want to do so much more with these people, but they're expecting me to needle them, cup them, manipulate them, do Pilates, do red cord, do whatever, physical healing modality. That's what they're coming for. That's what we're calling it. And in my head, I'm starting to move into this identity as a coach and I'm getting frustrated. And I'm like, okay, I just need to start doing coaching. I need to start offering coaching, selling coaching. And I remember finally when I started, the first time I did that, it was super scary, of course. And I was like, oh my God, that was easy. Someone said yes. I undercharged. It was, oh my God, you guys, how it was pricing was just completely ridiculous. And yet it worked out great. It was fine. I was like, why did I wait so long? Why did I wait? Why did I make myself get so frustrated when I wasn't trusting myself? I wasn't trusting myself to do it. And part of the problem was I grew up in a world, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a clinical world that taught me I have to have someone else's permission to do something and have someone sign off on me in order to do something. There I was pledging allegiance to being a rule follower again. Look at where that got me the first time. Got me cancer. No thanks. Right? So I just remember kicking myself and being like, why'd you wait so long? As I started to call in coaching clients, and my niche I started with was teens with REDS in the female athlete triad, because that's what I did research on. It was my sort of expert holistic health background. And it was no trouble for me. It was there. Oh, I made a lot of mistakes in my marketing for sure, but it was this was no big deal. I was making this big deal in my head, and it's completely valid that I was based on the clinical education model I came through. My identity was shifting. That was really difficult. Oh, it was difficult. I didn't know how to explain the difference between PT and coaching. People would look at me how's this any different? How are you different from an integrative medicine practitioner? You're talking to me about my hormones, And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So I was really confused about what I was doing and all that, but somehow I was calling people in and just going with it. I went from coaching people, teens with REDS and female athlete triads, and teens with chronic pain and these really chronic health conditions, to like coaching adults with that kind of stuff, women, female athletes. That turned into coaching people with fertility issues, endometriosis. That kind of morphed into starting to attract a lot of clinicians who were exhausted and like wanted more mindset, spirit support, career coaching. So that kind of is where I went next. And then I just kind of followed the niche. I followed the problem as I was progressing, right? And I allowed myself to just play with it and stop needing someone's permission or a course to certify me and say I could keep making those transitions. Ultimately, I went from making, just to give you some numbers, I went from a very, very well-established PT practice of my own where I was making, $100,000, $115,000 a year as a like solo PT in my own practice with like one VA to now, within probably 6 months of really committing to coaching, I made that much in 6 months as a coach. This was years ago, okay? I remember being like, shit, wow, that's possible. And then y'all now, 5 to 6 years later, pretty effortlessly turning around $1 million a year in this business. And all of it comes with just aligning with my bigger purpose, aligning with my vision, that divinely gifted purpose, as I told y'all, okay? Now, this is my story, and I fucking love what I do. And it's not the story for all of you, or you're somewhere along the path, and that's okay too. And the next thing I want to help you do is figure out why you might feel confused like I did, why you might feel kind of like one foot in one place, one in the other, why you might feel like the vision of being this like established, amazing coach is so far off for you. And I just want you to know that when we do this work with our clients, we find that most people fall into one of three categories as to why you might feel confused or stuck or not ready to get fully booked as a coach. The three categories kind of encompass like three phases of the journey, and I'm going to give you some details on what they are. The first one is you haven't started yet, okay? You're scouting it out. The second one is you're in process somehow. You're either seeking clients or really emerging as the coach that you want to be. And the third category is you've arrived, yet you're still evolving, okay? If you're scouting it out, chances are you're kind of in the place where you're like, what is coaching? I don't know, like maybe that's something I want to do. It's kind of that place where I was, where I was like, there's something to this. I see people doing it. That seems interesting. Sometimes being like, can they actually get away with that? Right? Like they're not calling them, they're not licensed. How does this work? Right? Typically in this phase, maybe you're like looking into coach trainings because you think you need to do that first. Maybe it's still taking a lot of CUs. You're in clinical practice. You're fully booked as a clinician. You're not really like committing to get into the process yet of being a coach, offering coaching, selling coaching in any way. And that's great. Completely okay. The problem is you look at your clinician lifestyle and you're like, it's long hours. I got to trade hours for dollars. I'm like constantly like working with these clients who expect me to put my hands on them and magically heal them, especially when they don't do their home exercises or their homework or whatever it is, right? They're not taking their medicine, like whatever it is, whatever clinical world you live in. So you might be feeling a little held back. You might be starting to feel the weight. You might be in like a kind of a toxic work environment that you want to get out of. You might be spending more time in the clinic than you are with your family, missing your kids' soccer games. You might be trying to work on the weekend to try and catch up. You might be writing notes till 11 p.m. at night. You might be dabbling a little bit with being a coach. Like maybe you've made an Instagram and you're like, let me talk about more of this like integrative health stuff. Let me talk about more mindset. I'm just going to see like what lands with people. Maybe you are listening to podcasts. Maybe you're starting to learn, maybe you're watching this video and you're like, let me learn a little bit about this, right? So if that sounds like you, that's great. You're scouting it out. And I want to tell you at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you how you can go from scouting to completely shining the coach that you want to be. And I want you to know it's not as hard as you think it is. I was going to tell you why you're still in this phase and like not confused, right? Like not quite putting one foot in front of the other. So just hold off there. The second stage that we see people in is the seeking phase. So this is where you're like, all right, I'm doing it. Okay, you're like, I'm doing this coach thing. Don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And you are either getting a trickle of clients or you've made it further along. You're getting an overflow of clients, but you're still overwhelmed. You're still stressed out. You're still not quite in the lifestyle that you've envisioned or that you thought coaching would bring. Or maybe you have an overflow of clients, but you're still not getting the income that you dreamed of. If you're only getting a trickle of clients, you're definitely not getting the income you dreamed of. and likely not in the lifestyle that you want. Maybe you've made the leap completely into coaching, but a lot of people still have like a big toe in the door of clinical work. Maybe you've still taken on some clinical clients. Maybe you're mostly doing clinical work because it's like convenient, easy income, stable income. Maybe you're selling your clinical work PT because it feels easier to sell than coaching. Maybe you are constantly still explaining to people the difference between PT and coaching, and no matter how hard you try, they're still like, I think I'll do PT instead. That sounds better, right? Maybe you're explaining coaching to people and they seem like they're all in, and then they're like, I don't really believe I can create that change. Like, you're actually helping them create a vision. You're helping them see how coaching will help them go further faster, and they don't believe they can do that. So they're like, I think I'm going to go like do it on my own, or like find a doctor, or like do more clinical work. They're opting into the clinical track when you're like, there's so much more I can do with you here, right? So if you're in this category, typically if you're doing all those things, you've done the marketing mastermind, you've hired a marketing coach, you've hired a social media person, you've optimized your SEO, you've worked on your website, you're like, I gotta like move into this coach space. Okay, you're doing all you're posting online every day, you're making reels, and yet somehow things aren't going as fast as you want. They aren't feeling as seamless as your clinical career, where you just kind of like moved up the ladder and checked boxes and got fully booked as a clinician. And you're feeling invisible, you're feeling unseen, you're feeling like, what the fuck am I missing? I am a freaking accomplished rock star. I'm trying everything. And you've got this little voice like, what am I missing? How are those people out there, established coaches, telling me they're calling in 6 figures as a coach from being a clinician? They're doubling their clinician salary. How are they getting all these clients? What do they have that I don't? Does that sound like any of you? Like, what am I missing? You hear me being like, I make $1 million as a coach. Yeah. First of all, that's not what I take home. Secondly, like, yeah, it's possible. If I had told myself this 7 years ago when I was starting to like think about coaching, I'd be like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, Julie, right? Like, I wouldn't believe myself, okay? So if you're in this category, the seeking category, you're not alone. If you're in the more emerging side of it, where like, you're seeing that taste, you're like, actually, I do kind of believe I could get there. Chances are you're probably undercharging, right? You should price higher as a coach, but you're like, you just can't wrap your head around people paying you more for coaching than they do for your clinical work. So if that's you, I want you to know you're not alone. You're in a perfectly poised place. You're doing such great work. You're actually doing all the right things, okay? And I'll let you know why you're still there in that part of the path and what to do about it, with a lot of things to clarify for you. Lastly, we find people who are in the shining category. Shining means you've arrived. You're home. You're in your coach identity. You're like, all right, this is where I am. This is what I'm doing. You've let go of the clinical identity. You don't introduce yourself as a clinician anymore. If you notice at the top of the live stream, I didn't say I'm Julie, I'm a PT. Not at all. I did tell you at some point I went to PT, I do whatever. It just didn't come out of my mouth anymore. And that feels fine. Used to feel scary. Used to feel like I was letting myself down, right? Or my parents or my colleagues or whoever, right? In Shining, you're no longer afraid of what your colleagues are going to say. You know the difference between PT and coaching. You don't even have to explain it. People kind of come to you. They seek you out for your niche, for your craft. Your colleagues actually tag you on Facebook as the one to help people, instead of being like, how is this any different than PT? Like, why are you throwing away your DPT, selling out the profession? You've moved into like pricing at a really premium high-end level, and you feel good about that, and people say yes before they even get on the phone with you. They don't care what you charge. They're not asking like, how many sessions do I get? Are you charging per session? It's none of that trading hours for dollars lifestyle. You've got plenty of free time. You've got all this creative energy bubbling up on how to really share information with your clients. And you feel like even though you've got things you want to evolve in yourself, you're aligned with your bigger purpose. The problem in this stage is sometimes you can get your cart ahead of your horse. You get way too many ideas and you get into a habit of staying up till 1 a.m. doing stuff all the time. I'm not going to do that, but you can move back into your old patterns of A+ studenting and efforting really easily. And so this is a stage where having a coach, having a mentor is really important. Maybe the most important, to keep you really effortlessly moving towards your next vision, getting to your next program, your next income level as well. So if you're in the shining stage, I have lots in store for you. So I want to tell you guys, no matter what stage you're in, that it's totally okay. And if you're in shining, congrats, but that's not the Shangri-La. That doesn't mean you're better than someone else, okay? It just means you're further along. You've moved further along in the evolutionary journey. It might mean you started earlier than other people. So what I find, like the common problems in all of these stages have to do with something that you may not realize is a part of your upbringing, even though I've kind of hinted at it. your upbringing as a clinician. And that is what we call the clinician contract. Basically what that means is when you graduated as a clinician, you raised your hand, you did something along the lines of the Hippocratic Oath and pledged allegiance to a rigid medical academic education model that basically said you need letters behind your name, you need a piece of paper, you need someone else's permission to check you off as independent, to check you off as ready, to check you off as qualified, to check you off as credible, to receive patients, to receive money for those patients. And whether you realize it or not, might still be, whether, especially if you're in the scouting or seeking and emerging phase, you might still be in that model. If you're like, I need Julie to tell me I can be a coach, okay? Or I need someone to tell me that I can do it. No, y'all, the only person who gives you permission is you. Even as a PT, right? You could get the degree, you could get the credentials, you could have 30,000 letters behind your name and still think you're not credible enough, still think you're not good enough. Or raise your hand if you've had that problem before, okay? And so you continue to chase permission from other people and also rules. In the clinical world, there are, for good reason, scopes of practice, laws, rules, state lines that delineate what you can and cannot do. The good part of rules is it keeps the consumer safe. The problem with rules is it boxes you and the client in to someone else's definition of safety. And you may have taken that definition of safety on for yourself. Might feel cozy there. You know exactly what you can and can't do. And so the thing is, y'all, rules are a replacement for trust and intuition. We only put rules on ourselves when we do not trust. And rules are great for that. Sometimes there are times I'm not in trust and I need to be like, you're doing this first. Here's the rule. Here's the rule. Just to like bring myself back to trust. Okay. So rules are fine. They're not wrong, but they are a replacement for trust. They're a replacement for expansiveness and they box you in. So if you're like, I keep trying to shapeshift into this like clinical thing over here and it's feeling kind of heavy, you have outgrown it. All right. You have moved into a phase of your career, of your life, of yourself, where you can sit with a patient and be like, I'm gonna push, we just need to talk about this, even though it's not really in my scope. You know, you're not gonna get in trouble. But the problem with the clinician contract is it's this rigid thing that constantly goes before you, where you're afraid because you've come through this model of someone tells you have to be independent, they have to tell you you're independent, that you're like, whatever, that you're gonna get in trouble. And there's nothing that an A+ student hates more than getting in trouble. Oh my God, forget about getting a B on the test. What if you get in trouble with the teacher? Ooh, right? What's worse? You can live with the B, but the trouble, the shame that comes with the trouble, nobody wants that. You better believe I never got in trouble in school. Not once. I was the good kid, peacemaker. Anyone else? Right? I was more afraid of that, that's for sure. And so the problem with that is this needing someone else's permission to be credible, to be independent, to be complete. It gets translated into, I also need someone's permission to be worthy and whole and loved. It's like a bastardized way of looking at it, but it is literally how we move into this world. And so all of this chasing for independence and permission is actually robbing you of freedom. It works when you're really maybe new and you like, again, you don't trust, you're like a new clinician, you're like, I need some rules, right? But the more established you get, you're like, I don't like the rules. No, not for me. Or maybe you don't know what's holding you back and it's because, maybe you're like, why am I not moving into this? Why am I not chasing after that desire I have? Why am I seeing everyone else do it? Why am I feeling jealous that everyone else is doing it? Why am I questioning if anyone else can make money? Why am I mad that people are calling themselves a coach? It's because you want it. Okay, jealousy comes from a place of desire, unmet desire, usually. May not be because you want it. It may not be for you, but for most of you, it probably is. But you might be so chained to this clinician contract and all of the unconscious programming and conditioning that it's brought that you might not even realize that's why you're not on the place and the path you want to be. So I'm here to tell you it's okay. It's okay. If you've just now realized, oh shit, I signed this contract, I didn't realize I did. I want to tell you, by the way, the Hippocratic Oath tells you that if you like promote yourself, do something for your own vanity, like follow your own heart, that you will be destroyed. It was written in Greek and it got translated and the words are, I shall be destroyed. And even though PTs don't necessarily take the Hippocratic Oath, we take a version of it that has a really similar thing. And so you actually did pledge allegiance to something, okay, that says you will literally be destroyed if you break the rules. Okay, so y'all, I want you to know as a coach, it might feel scary to step into a world that doesn't have so many rules or no rules. You don't even know what to call yourself. There's not like letters behind your name, although there's plenty of coaching certifications that give you letters. You might not know how to explain things to people. You might feel completely lost. You might feel confused. You might feel like you're having an identity crisis. You might feel like you're never going to get there. You might feel like, oh, only the like precious, lucky few. No, come on. Like, stop playing small. Stop putting yourself in this clinical box. That's why you're thinking those things. And you can't see a different reality. So what needs to happen is breaking up with the clinician contract. Whether you're going to go into coaching or not, that's what needs to happen. Even as a clinician, breaking up with the clinician contract like brings so much more possibility for your clients and your business. Instead, you need to take the coach's oath, which is to surrender this white knuckle grip on rules and needing someone else to tell you when you're complete, when you're whole, when you're ready, when you're independent. That's robbing you of freedom. Isn't it so funny? The word independence. We like look for someone else to tell us when we're independent. Like literally the CPI for PTs, like your clinicals, they rate you as independent. We rate our patients as independent on the functional scale. We look for that as a marker of achievement. And yet the very act of seeking independence robs us of freedom. Do you see that paradox and irony there? We talk about that for another 6 days, but we're going to move forward. So the clinician's contract realigning with the coach's oath basically tells you to surrender the grip on them, even though it feels safe. And of course, it's going to feel scary to let go of this thing that has felt so familiar, even though you don't want to be there. Of course, that's going to feel scary. That's why you need a coach. That's why you need a mentor. You need someone to walk through that with you who's been there, who's felt the fear, who gets it, gets you, and can keep you from continuing to go jump back in the box when you know you want to jump out and can hold your hand. That's why you need a coach. The coach's oath says to surrender that. It says to surround yourself with like-minded people who get it. There's nothing scarier than going into a scary world that nobody really knows what the rules are. So surround yourself with people who are willing to step out of the box. It may mean that you're going to shed some layers, some connections with people. It may mean you're going to have some naysayers. It may mean people are going to start questioning you. Yeah, I hope they do. If you're not taking a stand, if you're not shining bright, if you want to shine bright, people are going to fall into one of two categories. They're going to be like moths to the flame. Oh yeah, I get you. I'm totally with you. Or they're going to be like cockroaches and scatter. They're going to naysay. They're going to question you. They're going to whatever, poo-poo your idea. They're going to be people in Facebook groups saying whatever. You get to follow your intuition and your divine design on what's right for you. This applies to everyone, no matter what you decide you want to do. And there's nothing wrong with clinical work. For some of you, clinical work is not aligned for you. For some of you, coaching work is not aligned for you. So the coach's oath is surrender the white knuckle grip on the rules. Surround yourself with like-minded people who are only going to lift you up and support you and help you to continue on your divinely gifted path. And then you'll see surreal results. The coach's oath works in clinical work too. By the way, it works. That's the oath to take. Seeing yourself as a powerful sovereign being who makes decisions and not looking at other people's decisions and being like, well, theirs is wrong. Now let's get into the first question people have. So I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions that I've been getting that I'm going to go over with you. And I'm going to tell you what they are first, just so you know it's coming. Okay. The first one is, what's the difference between clinician and coach? I'm going to give you my best attempt at explaining that one. It changes every day. Is there legal and governance that I need to be aware of in both camps? Kind of not. Okay. What's the credibility? What makes you credible as a coach? Can anyone be a coach? The next question, should I do coach training? Should I do business training? Should I do both? What order should I do it in? Do I need coach training before biz training? Speaking of training, do I need an actual certification? Do I need a piece of paper? Do I need letters? How do I prove to people that I've trained? Lastly, can I sell coaching at high prices, higher than PT, if I've never done it before? How can I do that? So I'm going to answer all these questions. Okay. So the first one is clinician versus coach. I'm going to use a car analogy. I use this analogy a lot. So generally speaking, when we put them next to each other, the clinician is seen as the expert. The clinician is seen as the expert, and the client is seeing the clinician as the expert as well. In coaching, there is an assumption, first and foremost, on the part of the coach that the client is the expert. There is an assumption that must be made. The client is the expert. The client is the leader. That's not to say that the client may not look at the coach as the expert. The coach is a shepherd. The coach is a guide. In the clinical world, the assumption is the clinician is the expert and is a shepherd and guide. Okay? There's a distinction there. What that means, in the car analogy, in the clinical world, the clinician drives the car. The client is in the passenger seat, along for the ride. The client doesn't have to get in the car. They have consent. The client can ask the clinician to stop at any time, and the clinician ideally, ethically will, right? The client can get out. They don't want to be there anymore. They can take a break. They're always in the passenger seat though. Now, that's not to say if you're a clinician, sometimes you put the client in the driver's seat. You do assume they're the expert. That's bringing in a little bit more of a coaching mindset. Coaching is really more of a mindset than it is a profession, just so you guys know. It's more of an approach than it is a profession. And this is where people get tripped up, okay? So as a coach, operating only as a coach, as someone who does that, I have adopted a mindset, a paradigm, sort of like this is how I approach what I do. It's how I approach myself, right? As a clinician, there's a different paradigm. There's overlap. Occasionally in coaching, I'm teaching from a place of like expertise, but it is not my responsibility for the client to do exactly as I say. They get to take it in, integrate it, decide what they're going to do with it. They're the expert. In clinical world, the education is very prescriptive. You do it this way. You do the exercise this way. It's not to say some of you as clinicians aren't like, I don't know, there's not a right way. Let's figure out what works for you. That's a little more coach mindset. Okay. So there's gray, it's overlap, but that's the most basic difference. In coaching, the client drives the car. I might be navigating. I might say, hey, you could go right up here, be a little shorter. The client might be like, I don't know, I want to take the long way. Great. They may regret that later. It's not mine to be like, oh yeah, you did it wrong. Okay, great. What'd you learn? Cool. I'm along for the ride with you. No judgment. Okay. The clinician might say, you know what? You might want to like ease off the gas a little when we go downhill. Just a suggestion. The client gets to decide if they want to do that or not. Okay. In theory, in the clinical world, the client is always the expert and is always a sovereign being. I just told this to my father the other day, whose physician told him he like couldn't do something. And I was like, you're a sovereign being. You make a decision, right? Like that is actually the truth. Clinical world just kind of sets up that dynamic a little more the way it works for the same reason the clinical contract does. It's not only an academic education model that we all are enrolled in, it's also a treatment model. This person tells me when I'm released. This person tells me when I'm clear to go back to my sport. This person tells me whatever, what medicine to take, what exercise to do. And I do what they say. I need permission. And for good reason. I don't know a thing about oncology. I needed someone to tell me what to do. Certainly could have tried to figure that one out on my own. I could have read every article. I could have gone to med school. That's an example of trying to do it all on my own without support. Okay, so there's a difference here. And I hope that that is feeling clear. Another analogy would be an athlete. So I was a swimmer. So there's a swim lesson instructor that taught me how to swim. And then there's a coach. The coach is no longer responsible for teaching me how to swim. The coach gives me information, try it this way. I'm ultimately the one who swims the race. I make decisions. It's not the coach's responsibility, ultimately on me. The swim lesson instructor, pretty responsible for making sure I don't drown, okay? Like teaching me the tools and skills to make sure I don't drown. I followed the rules. It paid off. A couple other things that are obvious differences. These are the 3D world things that people tend to latch onto between clinician and coach and like get all up in arms about or not. Okay. The first one actually is even if you're doing cash-based clinical work, there's still this like unwritten rule, although lots of people are pushing this rule and I love to see it, that there's like just like a capped amount you can charge because you are doing sessions with people. But at the end of the day, even for cash-based, the client may still want to bill it to their insurance out of network. So there's a super bill where you've got to do units, okay, like time-based units. At the end of the day, you're putting yourself in a box of rules from an insurance company, even if you're out of network and cash-based, right? Even if you have someone else make the super bill for you, even if your PT Everywhere software does it for you, okay? It's giving the client the impression that they trade dollars for your hours, either way. In coaching, there's none of that. There is none of that. There are no boxes. There are no insurance companies. There are no practice acts saying you have to bill this way for this many hours, blah, 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 blah. There's no Medicare rules, okay? And that can feel really scary to some people and very freeing to many others. What that means is financially, your earning potential is far higher, potentially as a coach, because you're not boxed into like an hours for dollars model. I could go into a lot more on that. Ultimately, that's it. The other piece that is very obvious, although there is telehealth now, is the physical location, physically present, physically touching clients. Coaches do not have to touch their clients, although you could be part of coaching, it's fine. Physical healers in some way, clinicians, usually there's some type of touch which means some type of physical presence, which means location dependent, which means you got to go somewhere. Of course, there's telehealth. It's fine, right? But ultimately, you were trained to touch the client. And it can be really difficult to do that completely virtually. That doesn't mean it's wrong if you do. It's great if you do. Good job. So those are the coach versus clinician major differences. Then we have legal and governance. As I already mentioned with the clinician contract stuff that we went over, in the coaching world, there are a couple of national, international federations that have created certification exams. The problem with them is nobody's governing that because there's no government that is saying this is a scope of practice. Whether that's going to change or not, I don't know. It might, it might not. It's probably not the highest on the agenda in most countries' governments, I would guess. That's not to minimize it, but at the same time, it's probably not. Here's the cool thing about that and the dark side of that. People can get away with just about anything calling themselves a coach. That's the dark side. The other dark side is if you are still in the clinician contract and you're feeling safe in the box with the rules, it might feel very scary or threatening to be looking at a world of coaching without all the rules to tell you what you can and can't do. You may also be threatened seeing other people do it and be yelling at them, oh, you can't do that, that's not in your scope, blah, 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 blah. If that's you, it's totally okay. That's just you. That's your own stuff. Own that as your own, okay? You're just seeing it in them. And so the good side, no rules. You can finally expand. You can finally align with your design purpose. You can help people. You can talk about things like mindset, spirit, nutrition, hormones, relationships, whatever, business, career, money. It's not really in your scope. And there tends to be this fear that the police are going to come after you and throw you in prison. PT police, they're not. You do get in trouble, potentially, if you're calling it coaching, but it's actually PT. And it's prescriptive and you're putting hands on people and you're getting super bills. Probably know what you want to do. But ultimately, there's gray area with even that. And so this is where trust gets to come in. None of y'all are going to go to prison. You're A+ students. You're not getting in trouble, okay? And so it's all about trust and the willingness to step out of your own rules, the society rules that have been put on you when it comes to the governance of coaching. There are federations, there are bodies, you can do the certification exams. It's great. They're not required to be a coach, call yourself a coach, do coaching. Obviously, as a clinician, there's a scope of practice. There's a difference there. Obviously, you take a licensure exam. Obviously, you have to renew your license. Obviously, there's people you got to answer to. Okay? So I think we're all very clear on that. When it comes to credibility, I already mentioned it. The truth is anyone can be a coach. Anyone can be a coach. Absolutely. That's the beautiful part. So awesome. It's a door of possibility for so many amazing people to expand, spread their wings, be able to impact people. Just because they didn't go to med school or get a PhD or a doctorate in PT or whatever, doesn't mean they're not going to be amazing coaches. While I've worked with many coaches who have gone through some type of highest level of education track, I've worked with the same number who haven't. I've had just as good of an experience with both. Sometimes better when people aren't bogged down in that education model. Because they're better listeners. They've always been kind of in this more intuitive space versus I have to tell you and kind of struggling with that identity piece. It's helped me be a better coach sometimes being around people who haven't been in that academic space because I see how they coach. And so the point there is your credentials, your academic degree does not make you credible. It doesn't make you credible as a clinician. It's what is required for you to be able to do that craft. But there are plenty of people out there who have gone through that academic degree program and are not really awesome as clinicians. We all know that, okay? So does it bring credibility to who? Who says it's credible? And what I think you're actually looking for is trust. When we say credibility, can I trust that person? Okay, it's a good check on I'm going to a surgeon, they have an MD and a board certification in this specialty. Yeah, that's a good check. But what happens when you go in the surgeon's office, you sit in the waiting room for 3 hours, you see the surgeon for 20 seconds, they don't even put their hands on you, they don't look you in the eye. Do you trust them? Absolutely not. So when we say credibility, we're looking for trust. Credentials get people in the door. Humanness, connection, vulnerability, that's what establishes trust, not degrees. And all of you who are amazing clinicians who really go for a connection with your clients, you know that's the truth. And the client's not waving, oh, she got a doctorate in whatever and graduated first in her class, which I did. None of my patients know that. They never knew that. That didn't establish trust with them. It was me. It was my energy. Okay. On that note, people ask me all the time, does a doctorate make you more likely to get clients as a coach? Help you stand out compared to coaches who don't have a doctorate? The short answer to that is no. Believing that is the clinician contract lane, which is The higher up I go, the better I am, the more loved, the more valuable, the more credible I am, trustworthy. And so we think, because we've been indoctrinated in this clinical world and this is our view of reality, that that's what makes us more trustworthy and credible in our marketing. It is not. Next up, on that note, do I need to go through a coach training and certification? Maybe, maybe not. It's extremely personal. It depends. It depends on how you trust your skills. It depends on how you trust your ability to stay in that lane of allowing the client to be the expert. It depends on how you trust your ability to ask questions instead of constantly tell, teach, direct, preach. It depends. Your favorite answer as a clinician to all of your questions, it depends. Do you have to do a certification? No. Do you have to do a coach training? No. I do tend to recommend to do one, but it isn't an all or none. You can also look at how much you trust yourself, how much you're willing to kind of play with it, kind of like I did. I did do the certification first, but remember what I said? It held me back. It's something I am grateful for. It was an amazing certification program. And also it held me back. It also didn't give me all the things that I wanted. While it was amazing, there were things that were missing. When I went through and started working with clients, I was like, oh, I want some more things. So you get to decide your education path. There is no one right way. But I do want to tell you, just as I just talked about with credentials, competence, a CEU, does not equal confidence, and it does not equal results. So if you're not feeling confident and you're not trusting yourself, you might feel inclined to sign up for a training, finish it, you're still not feeling confident. You've got a whole lot of knowledge, but that doesn't always equal action and results. You need someone to help you implement and apply it. That's why you need a coach. We all know that. Sometimes we forget it. I beg you, life is short. Watch your intention behind why you might be signing up for something. Whether it's a coach training or, I don't know, buying a car. By no means, by the way, am I saying to anyone who's watching this, don't do a certification. We help our clients. What I tend to recommend is, regardless of whether you do a coach training or not, make a business case for it. Before you're going to invest in something, figure out who you're going to help, why you want to help them, why that's important to you, and then go to a training that aligns with that if you do choose to do a training. Instead of taking a training, getting through 18 months of it and being like, okay, I learned a lot. How do I sell it? Who are my clients? How am I going to help myself grow this thing? And actually, I don't even want to do this anymore. That's the medical track. That's like, let me go to med school, let me go to PT school, get a very generalized education, and then maybe decide what I want to do with that. No, decide what you want to do first. This is the beautiful part of there aren't rules. There's not whatever. Make a business case for it. Figure out how you're going to get a return on the investment. And you can do them concurrently. We have clients do that all the time. If you decide that coach training is right for you. Yeah, it's like 2 investments at once. Sure, absolutely. We'll help you figure out how to make a return on both investments. CEO mindset is I figure out what I want and I reverse engineer what I need to do to get there. Student mindset, A+ mindset is, I don't know, let me just do all the things and then I'll figure it out. That's the clinician contract lane, which is the A+ mindset. If you're thinking you want to run a business, CEO mindset is for you. Be the boss of your career, y'all. Okay? You get to decide and you get to have faith and trust that coaching, if you choose to go that way, is incredibly profitable. It is possible for all of you, every single one of you, even if you've never made 6 figures as a clinician. Of course you haven't. You're in a box. It's got rules. There's only so much you can do. You're trading hours for dollars. Of course you haven't. The insurance company decides what it's worth, right? I mean, come on. There is a cap. There's a ceiling there. Clinicians' income. Coaching, it's expansive. And it can feel scary because you don't have rules. You don't have examples. I'm giving you examples, okay, of what's possible for you. So knowing the destination, reverse engineering versus investing in a coach training with no direction is gonna make you waste time. That is not a great investment strategy if you like to be profitable. If you like to not waste time, kind of farting around. Some people like that. I mean, sometimes there is value to just exploring. And that's great. So that's not wrong either. There's no wrong here. Ultimately, most of the people I know want to get somewhere and be clear and directed. So I just would recommend making a business case first. Last question on the business note. Can I sell coaching at high-end prices, higher than PT, far higher than PT, if I've never done it before? Do I need to start with cheap prices? Do I need to do beta rates? Do I need founding member rates? Do I need a discount? The answer is no. Your confidence, not your competence, is what sells. Your clients come to you for your energy, not your credentials, not for the bells and whistles in your program. They don't buy that stuff. They come to reach a destination. As the person who's the sovereign being, the client, the expert, your job as the coach is to help them enroll in a vision of what's possible for them. Okay? And so if they're enrolled in a vision, they're investing in their belief that they can reach that vision. That's what they pay for. Your confidence that they can reach that vision is what's like the icing on the cake. They're not actually buying your confidence at all. That's just what attracts them towards you. And so if you're like, can I make money? Will people pay for this? Of course they'll pay for it. Of course they'll pay for their vision that they came up with on what they want to do with themselves, that you helped them come up with. Of course they will. How many of y'all have dreamed up an amazing vacation and you do what it takes to pay for it? Of course you're paying for that vacation. You're doing whatever it takes to pay for that. You believe that you can create that vacation, so you invest in it. NASA, the US government, whoever, did not invest in rocket ships. They invested in the possibility of putting a man on the moon. They believed it was possible. They enrolled in the vision. Clients don't pay for your programs. They don't pay for you. They pay for the vision. People don't invest if they don't believe it's possible. We don't need to prove we can get to the moon before we invest in it. You also need to work on your messaging to call in people who are ready to believe in themselves and who are aligned with a higher energy and aren't aligned with needing you to fix them. This is the mistake I see people make. They get confused on the difference between PT and coaching and their own identity and their own practice. They keep talking about the program, the modalities, here's how I can help you, here's what I do for you, whatever. They're talking about them instead of helping the clients enroll in their vision, really talking right to the client about them. Clients invest in themselves. They're not investing in you. Your soulmate clients are ones who are ready to drive the car. They just want you to help them navigate. So getting certified might be for some of you. Absolutely. You don't need to do it to be able to sell at high-end prices. You do want some proof of concept at some point, but ultimately you can't get proof of concept if you don't have coaching clients. You can do it during patient care sessions, which is a great start. Absolutely wonderful. And that may be how you use your coaching skills. Wonderful. It can keep you in that like PT versus coach confusion. To the clients and patients, you're doing clinical work, right? And so your foot can be in two different places when that happens. If you're calling it clinical work, which you totally can do. In your mind, you're in coach mindset, but you're not offering coaching. Okay? People aren't paying for the destination coaching can bring. And you can limit yourself in the container there on your earning potential. Because again, trading hours for dollars. Which makes me ask you, if you want to be fully in the coaching lane, why would you limit yourself in the clinical lane when you can go so much further, make more impact, make more income? I don't know. Maybe that's not a thing for you. That's totally okay. No judgment. So if you're wondering how to step into the coaching lane, if that's for you, stay in the clinician lane if that's for you, but continue to thrive and grow there. This is exactly what we help our clients do. You may be wondering if it's possible for you. It may feel really far off for you. I get it. That's a normal thing to think. I'd expect you to think that. I'd expect for your eyes to be open on at least one thing that I went over today. I really want you to get some clarity for yourself. You deserve it. You deserve to be aligned with whatever type of business you want for yourself and step out of the box of needing someone else's permission to tell you what you can or can't do. And you deserve to have a coach to guide you no matter where you are on the path. We aren't meant to do this alone. The clinician contract says you need to be independent. You're supposed to do it alone now. And that's some marker of achievement. But how lonely does that feel? To like get this huge win and you have no one to celebrate it with. Or to like be totally hung up and you don't know who to call, or you feel just scared to ask. Or you like go in a Facebook group and ask a question and you get attacked about how wrong you are or whatever, right? You deserve to surrender this white knuckle grip of needing to follow the rules and do everything right and get an A+. Surround yourself with people who get you, who have your back no matter what, so you can learn to step into trusting yourself. We trust you. We know you're going to shine. We can see it. We've walked the path. We're here to lend a hand and help you. You can do this no matter where you are on the path. I love to be able to help you gain clarity for yourself, no matter what direction you go. I love you all, and I will see you soon.